EGR 6163, Project Management, Module 3, Lecture 1, Organization Structure and Culture. This module will identify the different project management structures and understand their strengths and weaknesses. We'll distinguish 3 different types of matrix structures and understand their strengths and weaknesses. We'll understand the interaction between project management structure and the culture of an organization. The reading assignment is Larson, Chapter 3. So once management approves a project, then the question becomes, how will the project be implemented? This chapter 3, examines 3 different project management structures used by firms to implement projects: functional organization, dedicated teams, and what's called a matrix structure. A project management system provides a framework for launching and implementing project activities within a parent organization. So here there's 3 different project management structures, as I mentioned: functional organization, dedicated teams, and a matrix structure. The matrix structure has 3 different ones: a weak, balanced, and strong matrix. So we'll take a look at each one of these and their advantages and disadvantages. So one approach for organizing projects is simply manage them within the existing functional hierarchy of the organization. So once management decides to implement a project, the different segments of the project are delegated to respective functional units within each unit responsible for completing its segment of the project. The coordination is maintained through the normal management channels. So here shows a typical structure. So here, again, a project is coordination is basically broken into the different areas depending on, so the marketing will do some of it, engineering will do some of it, manufacturing, and then procurement. So top management decides to implement the project, and the different segments are distributed to each one of the different areas. This is commonly used when one functional area plays a dominant role in completing the project or has a dominant interest in the success of a project. So for example, if manufacturing has the dominant role, well then they'll take a major part of it and the rest of them will be divvied up between the marketing and engineering and procurement. What are the advantages? Well, there's no change. The projects are completed within the basic structure of the parent organization, so there's no radical alteration in the operation of the organization. There's also a lot of flexibility in the use of staff. Appropriate specialists in different functional areas can temporarily be assigned to work on the project, and then they return to their normal work. With a broad base of technical personnel available within each functional department, people can be switched among different projects with relative ease. The other one is that you can often have in-depth expertise. If the scope of the project is narrow and the proper functional unit is assigned primary responsibility, then in-depth expertise can be brought to bear on the most crucial aspects of the project. Finally, the easy post-project transition. Since the personnel are already working in the divisions are already working, and when the project is over, they can just go back to working in their own division. They don't have to switch and go back to their department they were working in, because they continue to be working in that. There are some disadvantages. There's a lack of focus typically. Each function in the unit has its own routine work to do, and sometimes the special projects can get pushed aside just to meet the primary obligations. This is sort of compounded when the project has different priorities for different units. For example, the marketing department may consider the project urgent, but the operations people consider it only a secondary importance. So imagine the tension if the marketing people have to wait for the operations people to complete the segment of the project before they can start marketing it. So it can become a problem with coordination. The other disadvantage is poor integration across the different functional units. The different managers in each department typically tend to be only concerned with their segment, their department, and not what's best for the total overall company. The third one is it's slow. It generally takes longer to complete projects through this kind of arrangement. Uh, and the problem is kind of communication because, one division has to talk to another division. That one division has to wait on another division to finish their part before they can complete what they need to do. So it can be kind of slow. And the last disadvantage is lack of ownership. Um, there's little motivation for people to work on the project. It's almost seen like an extra burden or extra duty. Uh, and also, there's no owner, no one takes pride in the project. It's just everybody's sort of working on something on the side over here. That's a disadvantage. So the other end of the spectrum is the creation of dedicated project teams that work on projects. These teams operated as units separate from the parent organization. So they're kind of like their own little company formed to work on the projects. Usually a full-time project manager is designated to pull together a core group of specialists who work on full-time on the project. The project manager recruits the personnel he needs, both from within and from outside the parent company. The subsequent team is typically separated from the parent organization and can be given marching orders to complete the project. So here's an example, sort of a dedicated project team. So here you have your normal day-to-day organization of a company, and outside here you have your project team. So you have a project manager that reports up through the normal channels, but he basically maintains his own team. He can hire people from marketing, engineering, manufacturing, and procurement, or he can hire people from outside the company as need arises. So the final one is this, let's call this projected size organizational structure. These are the cases, organizations that's needed where, projects are the main form of the business. So, for example, here you're looking at things like a construction firm or consulting firm. These kind of companies are project driven. That's all they do is projects. So instead of one or two special projects, this organization consists of really sets of quasi-independent teams working on specific projects. In this case, the main responsibility of the traditional departments like marketing, human resources, finance, and legal is to really support the project teams. That's all they do. So here, for example, you have alpha project manager, a beta project manager, maybe a different one here, and they're sort of like have their own company within a company kind of thing. So the alpha project manager has its own engineering, manufacturing, and procurement, and the beta has the same. And the structure may look different depending on what the project is. And these traditional, business organization structures mainly exist to support all the different projects. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of this dedicated project team approach? Well, first of all, it's simple, it's fast, it's cohesive, and you have this cross-functional integration. Some of the weaknesses, on the other hand, is it's very expensive. Oftentimes you have internal strife between the dedicated teams and the traditional organizational structure. You can have a limited technological expertise. You typically have to go out and hire those kind of people. It can also be difficult, post-project transition. So once these team finishes their project, and the project team is disbanded, those people have to go back to the original departments, so that can kind of cause some confusion as well. So the final type is organizing projects with what's called a matrix arrangement. This is sort of a hybrid form in which horizontal project management structure is overlaid on the normal functional hierarchy. Typically, there are two chains of command, one along the functional lines and another one along the project lines. The project participants report both to the functional and the project manager, so they sort of have two bosses. The matrix structure is designed to utilize resources optimally. Individuals can work on multiple projects as well as being capable of performing normal functional duties. It attempts to achieve greater integration by creating and legitimizing the authority of the project manager. It provides a dual focus between functional and technical expertise and project requirements. So let's first look at an example. This company called Zeta Manufacturing, and then we'll proceed to a more detailed discussion of the finer points. So here you can see the structure of the company. You have your standard departments: engineering, manufacturing, and marketing. You have a director of projects that manages all the projects. And so this company has 3 projects going. So let's look at Project A. Project A has its own project manager. And this involves the design and expansion of existing product line, maybe as our book talks about, to accommodate new metal alloys. And so here, to accomplish this objective, Project A has assigned 3.5 people from manufacturing. So here you see manufacturing, you got 2 and 1.5. So you got 3.5 people for manufacturing, and you have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So you got 6 people from engineering. That's the number of personnel that report to the Project A project manager. So these people can work on the project part-time or full-time, depending on the project's needs, during various phases of the project. Project B has its own project manager, and here you can see the number of personnel assigned to Project B from each of the different divisions. Project C, again, same sort of thing here. You have 1.5 people from engineering, and you have 4.5 people from marketing. And again, they report to their own project manager. So the matrix structure is designed to utilize resources optimally by having individuals work on multiple projects, as well as being capable of performing normal functional duties. At the same time, the matrix approach attempts to achieve greater integration by creating and legitimizing the authority of the project manager. So in theory, the matrix approach provides a dual focus between the functional and technical expertise and the project requirements that's missing with either the project team or the functional approach. This focus can most easily be seen in the relative input of functional managers and project managers, as shown on the slide here. Here, for example, this is the responsibilities in the matrix structure. So the project manager, decides what has to be done, when should it be done, how much money is available to do the task, how well the total project has been done. The functional manager decides, how it will be done, how will the project impact normal functional activities, how well has the functional unit been integrated. And, there's some issues that have to be negotiated between the project manager and the functional manager. Who will do the task? Where will the task be done? What will the task be done? Is this task satisfactorily completed? So there's a lot of dialogue and exchange between the project manager and the typical functional manager. So in practice, there are really different kinds of matrix systems depending on the relative authority of the project and functional managers. The first one, let's talk about what's called a weak matrix. This is very similar to the functional approach, with the exception that there's a formally designated project manager responsible for coordinating project activities. The functional managers are responsible for managing their segment of the project. The project manager acts as a staff assistant. who draws the schedules and checklists and collects information on the status of the work and facilitates the project completion. Then the next is what's called the balance matrix. Here, the project manager is responsible for defining what needs to be done. The project manager establishes the overall plan for completing the projects. He integrates the contribution of the different disciplines, sets schedules, and monitors progress. The functional managers are concerned with how it will be accomplished. The functional manager is responsible for assigning personnel, executing the segment of the project according to the standards, and schedules set by the project manager. And finally, there's what's known as the strong matrix. Here, the project manager controls most aspects of the projects, including the scope trade-offs, assignments of functional personnel. The project manager controls when and what specialists do and has the final say on major project decisions. The functional managers have title over their people and are consulted on a need basis. The functional managers sort of serve as subcontractors for the project. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of matrix assignment management? The advantage is it's very efficient and it has a very strong project focus. It's easier to post-project transition. People are already working in their divisions. They just go back to what they were doing. And it's very flexible. Disadvantage is you have some dysfunctional conflict between the project managers and the functional managers. You have a lot of infighting at times. It's very stressful. And it can be typically slower.